Greetings everybody, this is Winnie, Wriggle, and welcome back to our Direwolf20's 1.19 mod pack. We're in episode 6. Today I have many things to show you, including the new decoration for our iron farm. It's a little less ornamental than I would normally make something. However, we have to be sure that we're careful of not putting any blocks up there that are spawnable. I think it does a good job blending into the rest of the build. I've also added a little pumpkin and melon farm because you can never have too many jack-o'-lanterns. I have relocated my little sheep farm to be integrated into the building, and we can access their wool from right here. That seems to be going pretty well. I've also added a garden in the back because I needed to start growing all the crops again. It's pretty straightforward. We don't actually have that many crops in this pack, so I've got some carrots, beets, potatoes, stuff from occultism, some flax, the flax from Silent Gear, the fluffy puffs from Silent Gear, and then some cabbage and tomatoes. So we're just improving our base one area at a time. In addition to the garden, I've also added some simple animal pens so I can keep up with my food demands. And I am using the feeding troughs from Quark. You can just fill them up with food and the animals will eat, and if they are ready to breed, they will. It's a little bit inefficient because they eat regardless of whether or not they're going to breed, so I would recommend just putting one stack in every once in a while. The focus of today's episode is going to be on setting up the beginnings of power for us, and we are going to do that using Immersive Engineering. Let's take a look at our project box. So Immersive Engineering does have a manual, and it's an excellent one. It covers everything you'd possibly need to know. Today we're just going to focus on two things. We've already made a coke oven and a blast furnace. Today we're going to make an alloy kiln so that we can mix metals into alloys. It's very simple. We just need 8 kiln bricks in a multi-block with our hammer, kind of similar to the way that we did the coke oven and the crude blast furnace in the last episode. We're also going to generate power using a water wheel. Once we have some power going, we're actually going to use it to build one of the pieces of heavy machinery, namely a metal press. Because a metal press will give us metal plates, and we'll need metal plates for lots of things. Not just Immersive Engineering, but also Create, which we're going to work on in the next episode. So a metal press, just like many crafting mechanisms in this mod, is a multi-block. So we will need to make a redstone engineering block, a piston, a heavy engineering block, 2 steel scaffolding, and 2 conveyor belts. One of those blocks, the heavy engineering block, is going to require us to make electrum, which is why we're setting up the alloy kiln. So let's go do that. First, we need to make up a bunch of kiln bricks, which is just sandstone and brick. There are 8 bricks. Bring them over here to the space I have prepared and do a much smaller 2x2 multi-block. Take our trusty hammer and right-click it. Now, just like the other multi-blocks that we have, if we right-click it, there is an interface. So we can put gold and silver together, which forms electrum. Give it a little fuel with some charcoal, and we get electrum. While we're over here, let's check on our steel production. We have generated some coal coke in our coke oven. And now if I put that in our blast furnace with some iron, very slowly over time, it'll generate some more steel. I mentioned last time that one of the byproducts of making steel is actually creosote oil. And if we take creosote oil and put it in a crafting bench surrounded by any wood planks, we get treated wood planks. And we're going to need that treated wood in order to create our water wheel. The other thing we need, in addition to the water wheel itself, is something called a kinetic dynamo. And in order to make a kinetic dynamo, we're going to need something called an iron mechanical component. That iron mechanical component is just copper ingots with iron sheets and or plates. Luckily, in my wanderings and chest raiding, we already have 2 iron mechanical components, so we'll use those. We'll also need a copper coil block, which is a bunch of LV wire coil surrounding an iron ingot. That LV wire coil is made with copper wire around a stick, and we get copper wire by using an engineer's wire cutters and a copper plate or sheet in a crafting bit. So before we have our big piece of machinery that can make plates for us, the workaround for that is just to use an engineer's hammer with a copper ingot in a crafting table. And I believe our copper coil block is going to require a number of those coils from us. So let's go ahead and make 32 copper plates to begin with. So our copper wire we can make by just putting engineer's wire cutters with the copper plates in a crafting grid. So let's make a pair of wire cutters. And now we have 32 copper wires. So we'll make some LV wire coils. We need quite a few because we need 8 just for the copper coil block. In addition to using them in the crafting recipe, we'll also be using them to move power around the base. So it's important that we have a few. So there's our copper coil block, our iron component, and our kinetic dynamo. Now that we have our dynamo, which is the thing that's going to actually generate the power based on the water wheel turning, we need to make the water wheel itself. To make the water wheel, we need 4 water wheel segments and 1 piece of steel. Each water wheel segments is just some treated wood planks and treated sticks. Now, we are actually going to make 3 water wheels and put them together. So I'm going to make 12 water wheel segments and then create 3 wheels from that. Now that we have the ability to generate power, we need the ability to move power around. So we're going to need some LV wire relays and wire connectors. Wire connectors are used to pull and push power out of individual blocks or machines, and the LV wire relays are used to literally relay power from wire to wire. First, we need a bunch of connectors. Let's just make 16 to start, and then some relays. I'm going to go ahead and make 32 of those because there are quite a few places around the base where we want to put power initially. So we have our water wheel, our wires, our connectors, our relays, and the kinetic dynamo. The last thing we need is a place to actually put the power that we're accumulating. So we're going to make an LV accumulator. Do note that it's important to match your accumulator and your wires with the kind of power that you're generating. Because we're using LV wire connectors, we want to make sure that we have an LV accumulator. An LV accumulator requires a bucket of redstone acid, which is just a bucket of water and some redstone. We also need 2 lead plates, which again, we're just going to get by putting some lead in a crafting bench with our hammer, and then some iron and treated wood planks, which we already have. So there is our LV accumulator. You can think of this as a battery. And that's everything we need to set up a basic power network for immersive engineering. Let's go set up our water wheel and start generating some power. So I've chosen to set up our immersive engineering stuff on the other side of our little river so that we can start expanding our base. First thing we want to do is set down our kinetic dynamo, and you want to face the black circle on this block in the direction that your water wheel or windmills will be attached. And we can go down here, right click to attach, and we're just going to put all 3 water wheels together. Now comes the slightly tricky part. The water wheel is not just going to spin on its own, obviously. We're going to have to put flowing water around the water wheel. Let me show you. Ta-da! So we have built what amounts to a box, kind of, around our water wheel so that we can control the flow of the water. Actually, the most important places to block off are the sides so that you don't get water spilling over the sides. The idea is that we want to run water across the top of the wheel in order to make it spin, because if it spins, it makes power. So I like to have my water flow start back here at the back. And if we give it a second, you should see it start spinning. And if we put another block of water and then a third one, now our wheel is spinning quite nicely and generating power. I think if you also put solid blocks of water here, you can add, there we go. You can make that water, you can see now it also is helping push the wheel around. So there's water coming down the top and then also pushing from underneath so that we are generating power. Next up, we have to hook up our dynamo to something that lets us show that we're generating power. So we're going to use an LV wire connector on the dynamo. So if we stuck our LV accumulator right near it and put another LV wire connector on top of it, and then used our LV wire coil, right click one connector and then the other to create a link, you can see that our LV accumulator is now filling up with power. Yay! It only took me 6 episodes to generate power, which is fine, because the next thing we're going to do is build a multi-block from Immersive Engineering in order to use this power to do some crafting. One of the cool things I love about this mod is it actually provides you with some beautiful ways to move power around. And to that end, we're going to create some wooden posts. Get us a wooden post up here. Oh, what do? Do we right click it with a hammer? Yes. So if you right click the post with the hammer, it'll extend a support arm out on that side of the pole to give us a little place to stick our next connector. And in this case, we're going to use a relay because the pole doesn't actually store or provide electricity. So all we need to do is put a relay because we're just relaying or moving the power along. If we go back to our book and we can take a look at the metal press, and if you hover over the question mark to the right of the multi-block diagram, it'll tell us what materials we need. Also, you can stop this animation and pace your way through it so that you can see how it's actually assembled. So we're going to need 1 redstone engineering block, 1 piston, 1 heavy engineering block, 2 steel scaffolding, and 2 conveyor belts. So let's make our steel scaffolding, which requires steel ingots and steel rods. So steel rods and steel ingots. We only need 2 of these, but they make 6 at a time. Next, our redstone engineering blocks. A little more difficult. We need iron sheet metal, and a little copper and redstone. Iron sheet metal is made with 4 iron sheets put together in a crafting grid. So we'll take our trusty hammer, make 8 plates. Now we can make a couple of iron sheet metal. And we have 4 redstone engineering blocks. Only need 1 of those. Now we need a heavy engineering block. And in order to do that, we need a steel mechanical component. I was not lucky enough to pick up any of these, so we'll have to craft them. And I think we need to make a couple of these. Okay, 2 more. Now we have 4 steel mechanical components. We also need some steel sheet metal, which, as you might have guessed, is made just like the iron sheet metal with some steel plates. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there are our 4 steel plates and our 4 heavy engineering blocks. We also need a conveyor belt, and this recipe makes 8, so we have plenty of those. So let's check our crafting list. We have 1 redstone engineering block, a piston, a heavy engineering block, steel scaffolding, and a conveyor belt. And you'll notice there are green check marks by them, which means we have everything we need in our inventory to make this multi-block. So all we have to do is put it down in exactly the same way the picture has it. So there are our steel scaffolding with the redstone engineering block in between. We need to put our piston facing down, so I'm going to put a couple of temporary blocks here so we can face the piston down, and then remove them. We also need our conveyor belts, and they should go from one side to the other. You can see how there are arrows. And then I have to look at the picture one more time. Yeah, okay, so the heavy engineering block goes on top, like so. And then in order to make the machine actually turn into a machine, we're just going to right click, oops, without torches in our hand. We're just going to right click the middle of the multi-block, and ta-da, we have pressing matters. So now we have our beautiful metal press. But you'll notice if we throw some iron ingots on there, nothing happens. That's because we haven't hooked it up to power yet. So we want to do the same thing we did with the poles. We're going to put an LV wire connector on top of our metal press because it's actually going to consume power from the network. And then we'll take our LV wire coil, right click here to there. I forgot an important step, and that is to make sure that we've set the side that we're connected to have power going out. And so in this case, orange, so that was 2 clicks, is out. In case you didn't know, most modded Minecraft, blue is in and orange is out. I have overlooked another very important item, and that is that this should actually be an LV wire connector because we're actually moving electricity out of this block. Now, we're linking through a connector, right click, and now you can see that our metal press in the upper left-hand side of my screen is getting power. Okay, we've set up power. We have relayed power to our metal press. Now we need to actually make a plate mold so that we can create plates. So a metal press mold plate is made on an engineer's workbench. There are quite a few other crafting components that made on these workbenches, so let's go ahead and make one of these workbenches. It's pretty simple. We'll just need some treated wood slabs, a treated wood fence, and an engineer's crafting table. So we'll make some slabs, make the engineer's crafting table, and our engineering workbench. Yay, time to tinker. So if we set this down, it's very attractive actually. And we look in its inventory, we'll be putting an engineer's blueprint in the left, and then the materials for crafting in the right-hand side. So for a metal press mold, we need a metal press mold's blueprint. That requires an iron plate, 3 blue dye, and 3 paper. So we'll make our iron plate, and I happen to have 3 blue dye and 3 paper. So this will give us an engineer's blueprint for metal press molds. There we go. So now we can put our engineer's blueprint on the table, and you can tell there's a blueprint in there now. And to make our metal press mold, it says it needs 3 steel plates and an engineer's wire cutter. So once again, we'll use our hammer, make 3 steel plates, grab our wire cutters, put those in our crafting table, and now we can pick which mold we want. And in this case, we want the metal press mold plate. Ta-da! We take that plate and we stick it on the press mold. And now when we chuck some iron ingots down, it makes plates. Yay, automation! So setting up actual automation for this is fairly easy. You can stick hoppers and chests on either end to both provide the materials for the process and also to collect it on the other side. While it's great that we're using moving water to generate initial power for us, it doesn't really do us any good over there in the base to have all the power over here. So we're just going to set up a network of poles in order to relay the power into the main base. So we right click the pole where we want the connector to be, hop up on some scaffolding to place the relay. And in this case, I think I want the connection to face towards the base. So we'll put a relay on top of that one, and just use our stack of coils to connect everything up. And then we right click on this one and right click that one to connect. And you can see that we are moving electricity to wherever we want it. So I'm going to set up the rest of the poles and relay connectors and move power to the inside of our base. I'll be right back. And we're back, and we have power that runs all the way into the base. So I just added more relays and brought the wire carefully into the base. Now, of course, from here, I could add another LV accumulator and we could use that to store the power, but they don't hold very much. Instead, what we're going to do is make a basic energy cube from Mekanism so that we can store more power at a time. And it gives me a way to illustrate how immersive engineering plays well with other mods. So in order to make an energy cube from Mekanism, which looks complicated but isn't, we're going to need a steel casing, which we have the materials for. We're also going to need redstone and iron ingots. Super easy. We also need something called energy tablets. And in those are something called an infused alloy. In order to make that infused alloy, we're going to need to make a metallurgic infuser and infuse iron with redstone. Bob, seriously, right in the middle of filming. What do you got for me? Arachnid Sphere, Bane of Arthropods 10, Mending, Looting, Unbreaking, Fire Aspect. I mean, we do have a lot of emeralds right now. And if you didn't notice, out in the waters past our barn is a mysterious cobblestone opening. And in that opening look to be quite a few spiders. So a super spider sword would be really helpful, right? I don't know. Is it a waste of emeralds? We'll see. I mean, we have a ton. Okay. Here we go. Diamond sword. Bob, this better be good. Diamond sword. 45 emeralds, which is kind of insane. But we're going to get Arachnid Sphere. Do I look scarier to spiders now? Rawr. Okay, let's keep it in our backpack for safekeeping. Where was I? Crafting things from Mekanism. Okay, we need to make a metallurgic infuser in order to make the battery itself. And so I'm actually going to just put this down here, stick an LV wire connector on its back, and hook it up temporarily to the power network, and it fills with power. Isn't that amazing? So we're going to infuse iron with redstone. So we put our redstone over here in the left, and then the iron here, and it'll clunk and thump away. And the good news is I think we only need 4 of these infused alloy. So we have 4 infused alloy. Now we can craft our basic energy cube. So we need 2 of these energy tablets. And there is our energy cube. Okay, let me pick this up, which automatically breaks the connection, clearly. So I'm going to put the basic energy cube right here and make sure that the top, yes, is configured to input. Put an LV connector on top and then do the short connection. And our energy cube is filling up with power. This one holds 1.6 million RF, or FE, forge energy, which I believe is about 10 times the amount of energy you can store in the ones from Immersive Engineering. And for our purposes, that's just going to be better all around. These are also fairly easy to upgrade. So we can upgrade them using just osmium ingots and some more energy tablets and infused alloy. And that next upgrade will hold 6.4 million RF. And with a power system that basically is generating power all of the time passively without any fuel cost, because of course we're generating our power using a water wheel, even though it's slow, it will accumulate over time. So the more we can store, the less we'll lose. But I think that's everything we have time for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a like. It helps me out and I appreciate it. In the meantime, remember, you are the shiny stuff that awesome is made of. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.